Alright, I know everybody in here has played a sport before, whether it be soccer, baseball, track, or swimming, or even water polo, even though some might not consider that a sport. But I'm sure everybody has played it to some extent, whether it be, in high school or if you just played a pickup game. Now, I'm here to explain to you how I believe football is the best sport, but not only how it's played on the field, but of how it helps mold a person off the field. And football, I believe, tends to build character in people. And the way it builds character is that a lot of times, like when you're going through a lot of struggles, as I did in high school, I transferred 7 times in my first 3 years in high school from a lot of the decisions I made. And I've only been playing football for 2 years. And once I finally decided to play football, a lot of the things in my life cleared up. And I believe that's an attribute to because when you play football, you really don't have time to think about anything else. It kind of, for however long your practices go, and they can go up to about 4 hours, at least they did in Florida. I'm not sure about how they go out here, but they can go up to about 4 hours, and it's almost helpful that 4 hours, that whatever problems are in your outside life, that you don't have to think about those problems during football. It's just football, because if you think about anything outside of football, when you're in football, for a lack of a better word, you're going to get messed up. If you're not always there, you see a lot of guys that if they're jogging or if they don't doing something, then there's always somebody looking for the big hit, and you can not only cause mental harm, but it can cause physical harm too. And so, I've been in a lot of different sports throughout high school. I've played soccer my freshman year, I played basketball, and I played baseball. And I also threw in track and field, and I've actually swam in middle school, and I did karate in middle school. So, I mean, I've done a lot of sports, but I can honestly say none have altered your outside life as much as football has. Because when I was outside of football, I could always take myself back to the lessons I've learned back to football, like whether how hard somebody knocks you down, you always have to get up, and there's always somebody counting on you to do something. And whether it be block, whether it be catch, whether it be throw, like there's, well, a lot of other guys counting on you to make your block, make your catch, and make your throw. But there's other sports people equate to theirs being just as good, but I equate football to being like in a fight, and because that's what it is. Because it's a fight for 30 minutes. You're getting physically abused every single play, no matter what position you play. You're always hitting somebody every play. But not only does football help build character, it helps build strong relationships. And I've had people I've played with football back in high school, back in Miami, that I still talk to this day, and it's a lot of them. It's not like just 2 or 3 guys. There are probably about 30, 35 guys I still keep in contact with on our football team. And the reason you build those friendships is when you're being like physically abused together, and believe me, we sucked. So we weren't abusing anybody, we were the ones being physically abused. I think my senior year we went like 2-8. But no matter how bad you guys suck, you guys push through it together, and you always get to see somebody's character. Like you see who the person they really are. If they're a quitter, you can tell by the mid-season whether they've quit the team or not. Or if they're somebody who's determined and who's going to keep, ongoing no matter how good or how bad it goes. And most of the time it was very bad. But there's nothing really like getting beat up together to build a strong relationship. So, and lastly, football breeds competitiveness, and competitive breeds determination. And I've seen a lot of people, when they get knocked down, that they a lot of the times will quit, because it's not an easy sport for those of you who've played. It's a very difficult sport to play. And so you have to have a lot of dedication if you want to play football, and sometimes outside influences can influence your decision whether you want to play football or not, but a lot of the times a lot of people just don't have the will to do it anymore. But a lot of the times when you play football, you have to be determined if you ever want to succeed, just as in life, that if you want to get through life, you have to be determined and you have to, go at it head on. And there was a story this past year. I know a lot of you are familiar with the NFL draft, but there was a man by the name of Sharif Floyd that went into the draft. And at 15, when he was born, he was raised by who he thought was his father, and he was abused up to the age of 15, physically and mentally. And he would take the abuse, but at the age of 15, he found out that the man he thought was his father wasn't his father. It was a boyfriend of the mom that had just been with her the whole time, and he would physically abuse and mentally abuse and verbally abuse him. And so he quoted saying that football was his sanctuary, that he could go to football and that he didn't have to worry about things on the field, and he didn't have to worry about anything else, just football. Well, luckily for him, he was 6'4", 310 pounds, and could run a 4.5, which is really fast. So he made a living out of playing football. And once he found out at the age of 15 that his mom was in jail for doing cocaine, and his dad wasn't really his dad, he packed up all his things and he moved out at the age of 15. And he started living with his grandparents, who were his actual grandparents. And he would switch between his grandparents' house, his coach's house, and a friend's house up until he graduated high school. And when he graduated high school, he was lucky enough to be rated the #1 defensive tackle in the nation. He went to Florida. And this past year, he was drafted at number 28 overall to the Vikings, and he's a millionaire now. So it just shows you, and he attributes it all to football, that how it changed his life and how it changed his character. And I believe that it's like that for everybody to a certain extent. No one might be as gifted as he is, but football, no matter who you are, kind of breeds, a different atmosphere to help you get away from your daily struggles. Thank you.
Well, Cal, as a speaker, you've got a nice, comfortable, jocular way of relating to the audience. You're having some fun. You're enjoying what you're talking about. I think that helps you quite a bit get away with a lot of the things you're doing in the speech, but the content is a little thin. This is a personal story. It's interesting, but it doesn't really feel like it's a speech. It sounds... it sounds like an impromptu speech, is what it sounds like. It doesn't sound like it's a prepared speech where you thought, well, let me put together an argument. Let me do some research here. Let me find that it's convincing. You've got one example that you use right at the end to illustrate your point, and the rest of it is all personal anecdotes, which I'm not saying couldn't be included in the speech, but that's all of that the speech is. So I think you're trying to rely on your charm to get you through this, and you've got a good, charming way of speaking to the audience. That part's great, but you need to do some of the diligent work that's required in order to build this into an argument, and it just feels thin in regard to that. As I'm looking back at it, it seems better organized than it sounded like when it was being presented. I look back and say, okay, we've got character, relationships, and competitiveness. We got a lot of discussion of character, and like I said, that's all mostly the personal experience, except right at the end when you've got somebody else's experience that you're using on that. The issue about relationships, that's a very microscopic part of the speech, and I think it could easily be developed more. And then the issue of competitiveness, it's almost as small as well. So even though there is a kind of a structure that's going on here, it feels like it's a structure that's an afterthought rather than something that says, I'm going to plan on how to develop each of these points. It's, well, I've talked about competitive, I've talked about character, what else can I be talking about? And then these things are being layered in, but they aren't being developed very well. The movement in the speech is mostly in your feet. That's where your anxiety comes out. I think you've got some good ideas here, and I like, like I said, I like the way that you're speaking to the audience. I just think it's underdeveloped. It feels sketchy. All right. Thank you.